Hello, welcome everybody to another episode of the In the Paint Show presented by Ballislife, episode 116. Here with my co-host Ani Umana. Ani, how's it going? We're revving up for the playoffs. A lot to talk about in a short period of time today.
Yeah, man, everything's going good. Like you said, just playoffs coming up. I know in California, y'all got the seating set, and in Texas, you know, the seedings aren't finalized completely. There's still a few district games, but people generally have a feel of what, you know, who they're probably going to have to face in the first round, what the seeding is. So it's a fun time. I like this time of the year because the playoffs, you're going to see a lot more competitive games. District is cool, yeah. But, you know, ain't nothing like a win or go home situation.
Oh, no doubt. And, you know, with us, we don't have a win or go home situation yet. You know, the Southern Section playoffs are starting. The best division where the state ranked and nationally ranked teams with the open division. And we'll go over that open division, you know, here in a little while with our special guest, Eric Sondheimer of the LA Times. He's been covering high school sports since the mid-'70s. So he'll have a lot of insight and a lot of hot takes to say. But I wanted to get your opinion on a topic that, you know, we've kind of brushed up before, but haven't really taken a deep dive on. And, you know, that's elite players coaching, players who didn't play, scouting, that type of thing. So there was a 15 greatest coaches list that just came out earlier this week. And, you know, what I noticed on that list is that there were so many few elite players on that list.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's, you know, just a few. So what did you think of that list? And, you know, was there any coach that you thought that deserved to be on that list that wasn't?
I thought the list was good. I thought for the most part, that list was pretty fair. I thought it was interesting seeing like Doc Rivers, who I believe is, but like, you know, he hasn't, you know, most of those coaches won multiple NBA titles.
Sure.
But no, I thought the list was fine. There, it's such the 15 greatest coaches list is like, so, you know, what do you kind of base it off? I mean, obviously you can base it off so many things, but it's just so, you know, it's different. Like, is it, you know, 10-year championships, you know, what's your win-loss record for your career, all that stuff. But I thought that the list was pretty good. And like you said, there's a lot of guys that weren't elite basketball players, right? Or elite NBA careers. And that is telling, you know, kind of, because you've seen a lot of elite NBA or NBA Hall of Famers that took head coaching jobs and it just didn't really pan out. You even see in the college level. So, you know, it's just interesting how that transition is, you know, for people, for guys that were at the top pinnacle as a player and as a coach, you know, really having to adjust.
Yeah, for sure. You know, like you think about a guy like Greg Popovich, who you know, coached at a small college in Southern California, and now he's like considered one of the best coaches of all time. So maybe it offers a different perspective. Like an old coaching mantra says, the bench teaches you a lot. You know, whether you get benched or whether you're just sitting on the bench because you're just not good enough. You know, like
right.
It gives you a good perspective. My take on it is that, you know, I thought there were some great coaches. I like some of the coaches that maybe that didn't win as much championships, but turned franchises around or were consistent winners. Some of those guys I would think, again, like Gene Shue.
Yeah.
Tex Winter is known as a mastermind coach. We know what kind of impact he's had.
Absolutely.
Dick Motta. Bill Fitch, the recently passed Bill Fitch, you know, he kind of was with the Cleveland Cavaliers before he got on with the Celtics, and he was known as a kind of like a take charge coach, like a Vince Lombardi, but again, he didn't have the talent in Cleveland. But as soon as he went to when he went to the Celtics, he won. So it's not like he didn't win, you know. So very interesting list, and like you said, I do think it says a lot for there being not a lot of elite players on that list. You know, I like Jerry Sloan too, and Jerry Sloan was a good player.
Yeah, Jerry Sloan was good. Yeah,
and he's consistent. Like whatever, he was simple in Utah. Like obviously, he had two great mainstays that were in his lineup for 15 years, but you know, was a long time. But they consistently won 50 to 60 games. Like that's not that easy. You know, you see a lot of teams that have ups and downs. So shout out to those guys that did make it. It was like you said, Eric Sondheimer, Doc Rivers, obviously the names everybody knows, Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach, like those guys are gonna make the list. But yeah, it's very notice that a lot of those guys either didn't play or weren't a high level player. So wanted to transition to that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story by Jeff Goodman from Stadium. It came out earlier this week as well, and he talked about that, but in a different light on college basketball.
Right.
And again, we've talked about Memphis and some of the struggles of some other teams. And what did you think about Jeff Goodman's story? And I wanted to touch up on something that Damon Stoudemire said, and he was a coach who paid his duty. He was at Pacific, and now he's on the staff of the Boston Celtics. And Damon Stoudemire was a Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-12 Player of the Year in 1995, NBA Rookie of the Year in 1996. And, he's what, a 5'10", 5'11" guard. And Damon's come on the spot to talk about Lute Olson when, the great college coach, when he passed. He shared his thoughts on an old episode of the In the Paint show. So, Damon, I wanted to just read it verbatim. I'm not going to try to summarize it. I'm just going to read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The thing that made many of us successful was our ego. As coaches, our ego can really hurt us. As top-tier athletes, one of our biggest weaknesses and our biggest strengths is our ego. You got to put that aside to be a successful college coach. Stoudemire reiterated that recruits, especially nowadays, don't want to hear about what he did in the NBA. They don't want to hear about it. He's a 5'11" guard in the NBA and that he made $100 million. Like, they want to know what they can do, what he can do for them, and what his staff can do for them. So, what was your take on Goodman's story, and on what do you think about Stoudemire's statements?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting article. It was a good article. I thought made different points. Talk about staff, right? Like, one of the biggest things for like NBA guys that play in the NBA that go to the college ranks is that they have to have a strong staff. And Damon, being an assistant at Arizona and then before going to Pacific, it took a couple assistant jobs before being the head job. He knew what his staff was supposed to look like to be a head coach. And, they made a point where NBA players, when they get in, they don't have, they didn't take years as an assistant. So
they don't have the acumen. Yeah.
Right. So they are relying on other people to help them with the assistants, or, they may make decisions. They really just don't know. Like you said, they don't have the acumen. But, Mo Williams made a really good point in that article where he said, as a player, you have a lot of downtime, practice games, and then you have downtime. He said, as a college coach, and I think Fred Hoiberg even mentioned it's like, you're going to do 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. and you have to be available, recruiting, recruits, text and calling. You got to check in on recruits and calls, media, alumni, all that stuff that comes with, taking the head job. That as a player, you could turn your phone off. It wasn't a big deal. So I thought just as a player, just seeing how, like, especially when you're an elite player and you can kind of bend out, you don't break, you can bend the rules some, right? Like, if you're Patrick Ewing, like, hell, the Knicks, you can tell the Knicks what to do,
for sure.
Then to now it's like you have to be available and you have to do it's like every day. There's no, you don't get 5-6 hours just to hang out, like,
Oh no, and he's got to answer questions like, why are you guys 0-10 in conference, or like that can't be fun.
Right. Every time, every game, every day, and every game you lose, your game. So, like, what's going on with the team? Like, I know Memphis, Petty, like, went off on the media that one day and said,
off on the media about a couple weeks ago, again, that was telling. It's like, quit asking me stupid questions. And it's like, Penny, that's, he didn't really get that as a player as much, especially when he was young, like you said. There was.
So what's your thoughts on that, on the article?
Yeah. My thoughts on the article was, like you said, a couple of those points were real strong. I like what Damon Stoudemire said, because I can relate to that as a guy who is not very big, not very tall, and trying to play ball. You got to be confident. And I also think that when you look at some of these college players that I've met, as assistants, some of them head coaches, and when you meet them, it takes a while to be like, okay, like, is he going to listen to my input? You know, like, here I am, a guy who just didn't play basketball at a high level, didn't play after high school. So I'm like, but I know what I know. I think I know what I know. You know what I mean? I'm confident. Like David Sondheimer said, I'm confident. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking if I wasn't. You know what I mean? So, but as a player, sometimes you're like, dang, am I going to tell, you know, again, I'm just throwing his name out there. Am I going to tell Jerry Stackhouse or Chris Mullin, like, yo, that's the player you need to take? Like, that takes a while to, like, have the, you know,
right,
the capacity to say that. And then for him to put his ego aside and say, you know what, Ani's right. I do need to look at that kid at Richardson, or I do need to look at that kid in El Paso. Like, who are those guys listening to? Again, like you said, when you're an elite player, it's a lot different. You know what I mean? You can go through stretches where you're not even tuned in, like zone. You can have an off day, so to speak, and still get it done. In coaching, you really can't. You know, you lose a couple conference games, now all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean?
Right. And then the players, you know, the day-to-day management of players is a beast, especially in the college level. Now, you look at it now with NIL, like you said, Damon made a point about they don't want to hear about him making $100 million in the NBA. They're trying to figure out how can you help them with the NIL, you know, what NIL opportunities are available. So, you know, and then the management of the players is a beast, you know, especially talking to coaches, especially this time of the year where, like you said, you got the guys that are, you know, really disgruntled. You got the teams that are really bad, coaches that are in the hot seat. The players know you may be in the hot seat.
They want out. They're looking at the transfer portal. They're hitting up their homies. There's a lot of factors. Yeah, so it's just, that's interesting. You know, like I said, there's some players who, you know, the guy I would think about, like, somebody that just comes to mind is like Jason Hart, who coached at USC, or Tony Bland. Like, they'll take my opinion just like somebody else's. Right. And sometimes it took a little while to get there, but like you said, they put the ego aside. How are you going to take an opinion from a guy who didn't even play compared to a guy that played in the NBA for, you know, 10, 12 years like Jason? It takes a while. And sometimes some college coaches have to realize that that's what they have to do. You know, they don't know everything on the trail, like where the bodies are buried, quote unquote, you know. So once they learn that, like you said, the smart ones get the staff around them that makes it work and know who to listen to. But if you're not listening to nobody, it's going to be a long, hard, and many oftentimes lonely road, as they find out. And the adjustment's tough. So if you guys get a chance, go read that article. I think it's worth it. Just give us some different perspective on coaching and being an elite player versus not being an elite player at all levels of the game, you know. So, you know, some of the greatest coaches I've seen, I always tell that to people. I'm like, oh, so-and-so is the best coach in Arizona. So-and-so is the best coach in the Southern California. So-and-so, I'm like, dude, so-and-so has the best players.
There you go.
There's hell of good coaches in every state that, you know, that just doesn't have the horses. And they're great coaches. They might win a league title here and there. They might win, you know, maybe they've won one section title or something. That's it. They're not, you know, multiple state champions, but they do a hell of a job. I've seen it, you know, like a guy who's getting maximum out of average players, guys like like you know, the borderline high school players, like guys who are not really going to go on to D1 or D2 basketball, and it's like they're winning. So shout out to all those guys. Shout out to the guys who listen to this pod that just grind every day. It's hard, especially with the pandemic and all that. You got to give them a lot of respect. So kudos to all those high school coaches. Let's move on to our main in the paint topic as we're strolling through today. Let's talk about the playoffs. I'll start with the Southern Section Open Playoffs. And the Southern Section Open Playoffs are, like I said at the top of the show, where, you know, a lot of the state's better teams reside. It's just the way they work. The Open Division has been around since 2014, and at the section level, it's been around at the state level since 2013. And, you know, it morphed into a pool play. So you were like, why is there pool play?
Yeah,
so
I was wondering that.
From 16-team bracket to 18 pool play. And the pool play matchups, as I shared with you earlier, include the two teams that you would know and follow and be aware of is top seed Corona Centennial and number 2 seed Sierra Canyon. Obviously, those are two of the best teams in the country and not just the state. So Sierra Canyon obviously got the big win over Glenbard West this past weekend. So they're up to 13 in the Fab 50. Centennial's been holding steady at number 5. So they're the top 2 seeds, and they're in separate pools. Pool 1 is, or Pool A, whatever you want to call it, is Centennial 1. Crean Lutheran with Victorious Miller. We talked about Coquille 4. Damien, which has a good team with Colorado bound RJ Smith, kind of their leader. They're 5. And Bishop Montgomery, which has been a state open champion before in 2017 with the 8. And then in Pool B, or second pool, whatever you want to call it, Sierra Canyon at number 2. Harvard Westlake 3. Harvard Westlake has a very good team. Mater Dei, the perennial power that everybody knows around the country, 6. And Sherman Oaks Notre Dame, which has a couple high-level elite players, comes at number 7. So, again, they all have to play each other. So the matchups are already set. They're going to play on Friday the 11th, Tuesday the 15th, and Friday, February 18th, with the championship game set for the following Friday, which is February 25th. So there's a couple notes about that. It's pool play for the 4th straight year. Mater Dei is the only team that is played in each season. Corona Centennial's missed it once. Centennial's trying to win its 2nd consecutive title, but last year with that spring season, Ani, they didn't play in the regional. So once they beat Sierra Canyon, they chose to go to Section 7 to get their players live looks. Again, this was in June.
Yeah,
it was just this past June, 7 months ago. Wasn't a year ago, right? So it's a short, condensed thing, but now we're back on a regular schedule. So when you looked at it, when I sent you over the pool, what do you think about that? And just some highlight, what do you have a question, or do you think, obviously some of those teams and who the two favorites are, but what are your thoughts on that? And do you have you coming from a place where you got to win 6-7 games in a row,
right,
win or go home? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting way to go about it with the pool play, and then kind of, I guess it goes pool to bracket is what I imagine.
Then they'll jump into the regional bracket. Correct.
I think I think it's actually I like it because the teams that may lose still kind of have a chance to win it. You can always catch someone on a bad day, and so every game, even though win or go home can be very intense, I think these type of games are still really intense. You still see a lot of good basketball. Oh, I know Harvard Westlake has a really good team. Mater Dei, I mean, I know they're kind of down this year, but they're a team that could be really interesting. Obviously Sierra Canyon, Corona Centennial, I mean, they should probably see each other at the end. Projected, but a lot can happen. I guess my question is why did you said this is what, the 4th year in a row they did pool play? What do you think led them to go to pool play, and what was it before?
Yeah, I think because it was a 16-team bracket. So the question was, those are 16 good teams, because now D1 has 8 of those teams, right? The next bracket that is the strongest bracket, which is very strong this year. So you got to remember, when the playoffs started, those are some of the best teams in the state. Multiple teams can win state titles at different levels. Obviously, there's only one open champion, which is most people consider the de facto state champion, but others are very deserving. So what happened is, after that first round, let's say this Friday, now that team's in a consolation. See, in the consolation, you had teams that they kind of lost. There was too big of a weight. If there was no, there was too big of a weight between the consolation and the teams that maybe lost in the first consolation game. So maybe 2 losses in a row to the state tournament. It was a big break, right? Because now you're looking at February 15th. Well, you're not starting the regional playoffs when you fall back into your region until March 1st or whatever it was.
Oh, wow.
Because the championship game is Friday the 25th. So the regional one starts with that next week. So what would that be? Saturday the 26th, Sunday's the 27th, Monday's the 28th, March 1st. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big now you're taking 2 weeks off. So it kept the teams playing by having it in pool, kept the teams playing. There's no consolation bracket. At the section like D1, D2A, D2A, when you advance to a certain level, which is usually the semifinals, you get into the regional. So if you get knocked off in the first round or the second round, you're done. But that wasn't the case in the open division, which had the best team. You had to wait. And some people thought that the consolation championship in the bracket wasn't very meaningful. There was no trophy, that kind of thing. Like, they're like, they didn't like it completely.
Mm-hmm.
So they made the adjustment to play preset games in a pool. Then you have the championship game, and then that means you only get 1 week off for the other 6 teams that didn't make the final.
Gotcha.
Right. So that's how that came out. So I guess the wait would be shorter. They wouldn't have, so many practice days at the end of the season. So
that makes a lot of sense. Another thing is, like, who do you think is kind of make a sneaky run at it?
The thing is, I think you have to look, like you said, at Harvard Westlake, and here's why. That game on Friday, the 18th against Sierra Canyon, the 2-3 could be a really big game. It could be like a de facto semifinal game. So Harvard Westlake plays Mater Dei in the 3-6. That's at home. So when there's no coin flip, there's no priority seeding. The highest seed gets the home game the whole way through. So Sierra Canyon is going to be at home. Centennial is going to be at home. So Mater Dei is on the road at Harvard Westlake. So Harvard Westlake's in the San Fernando Valley, which is 10 minutes from Sierra Canyon. So they're at home. So then Harvard Westlake gets Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame. Those two schools are very close to each other too. And that's on Tuesday. That's the 3-7. So Harvard Westlake's at home.
Yeah.
So then the only game Harvard Westlake would have to, presumably win is a very short trip to Sierra Canyon. So they only leave 10 minutes to their home, one time. So
yeah.
I think we got Eric Sondheimer here on our stream. I think he's ready to jump in. Let's see if he's in a good spot, if he can find a place that's quiet. Eric, do we have you? Let's see if Eric's on here. I'm not sure he's on here yet. So let's see if he'll call back. But so that's where I kind of take that with Harvard Westlake is they have like you said, what's the team that has a chance to? I think because they don't have to travel. They're gonna have to beat Sierra Canyon a couple minutes from their home. So that's a very interesting match. Could be a very interesting match. And like I said, that's already set. Crean Lutheran and a 4-5 Damien, that's a good game. Then they'd have to play Bishop Montgomery. So, Crean Lutheran in the 1-4 at Corona Centennial on Friday, the February 18th could be a big game. They have a chance. So, it's very interesting how that may work. So, the open is very difficult. It's not easy to navigate through, but you do know the matchups. That's one advantage for the teams. They already do know who they're playing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. You could already scout on it. In Texas, you just really, when we get, like I said, we're still kind of in the district play towards the very end of it. But when you get in the playoffs, it's like, you got that one game and then that second round game, you won't know maybe till, maybe that game's not that day. Yeah. It may be the next day or 2 days. And then you're just trying to figure out how to scout and who you may go against. But it's man, like the pool to bracket, that's a beast. That's still a beast. And
I think we have Eric here. Eric, can you hear us?
Yes. Hello. Sorry.
How you doing?
That.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining our show, Eric Sondheimer of the LA Times. Eric, I know you're always pressed for time. You got a million things to do, and I want to make sure we got this connection. So just want to jump right into it. We were talking about potentially a team breaking through the mold and getting through to advance to the final that wouldn't be Corona Centennial or Sierra Canyon, the number 2 seed, obviously Corona Centennial, the top seed. And we thought about Harvard Westlake because they just don't really have to go very far. They got 2 home games, and then they'd have to play at Sierra Canyon, which is just down the road. What do you think about the pool, and what do you think about somebody's chances besides those 2 top seeds?
Well, they clearly are the next best that could break in. I mean, I don't really care about the home sites. I mean, I don't think the road is a whole lot bad going through home sites. the question with them is, will they be able to beat Mater Dei and Sierra Canyon within their division? And that first game against Mater Dei is going to be huge for both schools. Whoever wins that game, I think, will give Sierra Canyon a good game, you know. And Harvard Wesley's got the size. They have Brady Dunlap, who's been shooting the ball really well. They have a veteran guard and Cameron Thrower. I just want to make sure that those big guys come through. You know, when they lost to Notre Dame, the big guys were invisible. And so they need to pick it up a little bit. But Mater Dei has been underrated all season, yet they keep winning. They've only had 2 losses. So that's going to be a great game. That's the game that I'm going to on Friday night.
Yeah, that's the game that right off the bat, as you mentioned in the 3-6 game. You know, Eric, wanted to get your take on a few things. Obviously, we always talk about the teams that get in, the teams that didn't. You know, was Riverside Poly a glaring omission, and where do you have them ranked in your top 25 this week?
Well, they were definitely in the top 8. So I think they were like 4 or 5. So I don't know why they were not let in, other than they felt like their schedule wasn't good, but they have a win over Damien. So, I mean, clearly they should have been in. It's not a big deal. They'll be happy contending for a Division I championship, you know. So a lot of young players. I think they did a good job except for that one. But there's always, nobody's perfect. So I don't have an issue with the fact that they left them out.
Yeah, you know, I saw Riverside Poly obviously a few times, as you did, and like you said, they don't have no stinker losses. They did lose to Centennial big, but so did Notre Dame. And they, you know, the Notre Dame had a couple stinker losses. They lost to Seraph Gardena, who Poly beat. So there's definitely a case to be made for Riverside Poly. Like you said, in my state rankings, they're in the top 8. Your SoCal rankings, they're in the top 8. So we'll see. I just hope people don't go, well, see, they didn't deserve in if they lose in D1, because that's not really the case. I mean, as of today, they could have been in, regardless of how that D1 bracket plays out.
Yeah, and D1 is loaded with top teams. So if you win D1, you're pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get to that here in a minute. What do you think the CIF State, Eric, is going to do with the SoCal Open after the sectionals, with the LA City being so down? You know, the LA City really doesn't, their Open champ really can't compete with these teams we just discussing. What do you think is going to be the scenario there?
Well, they're definitely not going to be in the Open division. I doubt they're going to be in Division I. You know, it depends on who wins it. You know, the Fairfax is playing Venice on Friday. That'll be a big game to decide who might be the number 1 seed for the City Open division. So maybe Division II for the champion. I mean, the city is way down. It's so wide open that 1 through 8 could win a championship this year.
Wow.
So as far as state is concerned, I hope they put the city in Division II, because that's where they belong. Yeah,
we'll see. Hopefully, you're right. They don't give them just token seeds because they're from another section, that they really put them where they belong. You know, do you think that there's going to be any talk, or are we ever going to go back to where there's a all-day championships at a big venue again, Eric? Do you think that that's eventually going to happen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just not going to happen this year because the LA County remains the one county that's still requiring masks, and we don't know when that's going to come off. So they don't want to do anything until that gets taken off. They could always go to Orange County or even the Inland Empire, but it's too late to get bigger venues. You know, you have to do this months in advance. So next year it'll be fine. And if people need to get a neutral site with some more fans, I'm sure they'll be able to get a bigger high school to do that for the regionals.
For the regionals. Yeah, some schools are not going to be able to play at their home sites, I imagine. And I do hope they go back to having a lot of games at one venue. Yeah, you know, because it's hard, like for you and me and other people in the media, it's hard to see games. I mean, even this year, all the games are on, the boys' games are on Tuesdays and Fridays, and there's none on like a, you know, Thursday or Monday or something like that. So it's hard to watch exactly what you want to watch. On a bigger scale, Eric, what do you see the future of SoCal basketball going to be? You know, has this COVID-19 changed it forever? Are we going to still have as many strong teams? Is the city going to come back a little bit, or is it just too many years or too many seasons are going by with all these restrictions that it's going to be hard to recover and people are going to leave and want to transfer to prep schools or where they could do whatever they want? You know, what do you kind of foresee that here in the near future?
Well, clearly, if we're referring to the elite players, there's
Yeah.
more options than high school. So I see more players going for those options, the top of the top. But that's fine if they want to do that, and all
Yeah.
they care about is themselves individually. Then let them go at this point. I
Yeah.
mean, we're at the point. I'm not going to worry about you if that's all you care about is playing NBA basketball or whatever, and you have that dream, then go ahead. I mean, it's still a long shot, and if you want to do that, go ahead. But all the other schools are going to be around. The big interesting part will come next year when Sierra Canyon moves to the Mission League. They have a culture. They've been accepting player after player, and the Mission League, they don't necessarily do that. So in a lot of sports, so this is going to be quite interesting. A little clash that's going to be occurring. And the CIF ordered pretty much them to take the Mission League to take Sierra Canyon, and I can't wait to see how this is going to play out. So whether that's going to play out outside or internally, that will be the interesting case.
Correct. And Sierra Canyon has gotten players from, especially on the basketball ranks, from all over. I'm sure they've gotten football players from Greater Southern California. And Ani, just so you know that they're in the Gold Coast League, and the Mission League is a much stronger league across all sports.
Okay.
Sierra Canyon is going to be joining them. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, the elites, the top 50, top 100 players in the country, those type of guys are going to leave. They're going to do what they want. But high school sports is still very strong.
Right.
And it's going to be stronger in the future when we get back to somewhat normalcy, packed crowds, that type of thing.
Right. I'm not worried about it. It will return. Just like the people said that football was going to die. We're going to have 7-on-7. They're going to take over. Or club football. What happened to club football? It's disappeared. I mean, stop screaming that the sky is falling. It's not falling. Everything will be fine. We just got to get through this. And I think this is the last year of issues, even in California, where we've been very conservative. But I think it's been great. I wear a mask. I don't have a problem wearing a mask. I don't see what the problem is wearing a mask. It doesn't bother me to wear a mask.
It bothers some people. You're right, but others, it's a whole. We could spend a whole episode on that on itself.
Right.
You know, Eric, the CIF has not had a live scholastic period, and they're not going to have one again for the 4th year. It comes down in many regards off the record to gender equity issues. There's not an equivalent on the girls' side. Obviously, the best teams, high school teams, as their high school team, they go to Section 7 in Arizona in June to play in front of college coaches. In your opinion, is the gender equity issue hurting both boys and girls when it comes to like getting looked at, getting recruited? Or do you think, hey, if you can go to Section 7, go to Section 7, you know? Or do you think it's hurting all the kids around the state?
I think it's just up to each individual how much they want to do. Section 7 obviously is good to get some exposure. It can help people that haven't been seen. And if they want to do it, then do it. The girls, I think, are going to get better here. We have several high school coaches have become WNBA coaches. You know, Vanessa Nygaard just left Windward to be the head coach of the Phoenix Mercury. And you have the Seattle Storm that hired Noelle Quinn. That's the best thing of all. These people know Southern California. They're going to help with to generate more attention to these high school girls, and it will get fixed here soon. So I'm not worried about that. It's up to each individual parent. To me, everybody's spending way too much money trying to get exposed. If you're good, they will find you, whether it's at high school, whether you're on a good or bad club team. People are just too worried about things. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. You're not good enough, or they don't want to hear the truth. You're not a Division I player. I'm sorry. I'm not playing the game anymore with the parents. You know, I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you don't want to hear it, then that's tough. Go somewhere else. And I'm tired of playing the little game. I'm too old. I'm 63. I'm not playing the game that if I'm nice to you, you're going to talk to me and give me your scoop of what school you're going to play. Others on the internet are playing that game. I'm not going to do it. So that's it.
I understand. People need hard truth. And like you said, there's only so many scholarships. You know, on the boys' side, the Section 7 has been good for these players because some of them are missing out on scholarship opportunities. So hopefully, like you said, the girls keep getting some proper exposure, and that keeps improving. Eric, what's your high take real quick and I'll let you go on the D1 bracket. You know, what do you see there? Obviously, like you said, there's good teams. There's some good matchups by the quarterfinals. Riverside Poly gets a bye. Obviously, they're the top seed, as we mentioned. So
I really like St. I really like St. John Bosco. They've been playing really well in the last couple weeks. They lost out on an injury to one of their top freshmen, but Jack Turner has really come on strong. So I think if they can take it one game at a time, and they have every opener is tough in the Division I. So it wouldn't surprise me if they lost in the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if they won it all. Beating Poly will be tough if they make it to the final, but I really have confidence in Matt Dung as a coach. He's won these big games. It's just a question whether they've improved enough with a young team to deal with the pressure that they're going to be facing, and I think they will.
Yeah, they should probably get by Culver City. Then they would probably play maybe Fairmont Prep, and like you said, that would be a big quarterfinal game against Etiwana. If they get to that game and play good, then you might be right. They might be making a Cinderella run. So, is there any other team that you like, or any other, or do you think Poly's probably going to advance because they're obviously they're the best team?
I mean, to me, it's either Bosco or Poly that's going to win it. Poly is certainly. We'll have to see how freshmen respond. So far, they've done great, in the regular season. But as long as they are not overlooking to other people, looking ahead. Sometimes young players look ahead. As long as they're focused, they should be fine. So, but I mean, every game is tough. That's what everybody has to understand in Division I. You cannot look ahead. You will lose immediately if you do.
Sure. No, great. Eric, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for the hard-hitting truth. And you're right. People need to be a little more realistic about their goals. And hopefully you continue to tell those people stories and tell them the information they need. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you. My pleasure. Take care, Eric. You guys. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye. So you see, Eric Sondheimer has been around the block.
Oh, man.
SoCal sports since 1976. So he just tells it like it is. And, he's right in many respects. It's up to the schools to put together let their kids know, hey, we're going to play in this event, because there is no other live event. CIF doesn't approve. Ani, I know that the UIL does approve of a scholastic period in June, which turned into very important. I'll be honest. I mean, Eric covers more of the high school, but from the grassroots side with the scholastic setting, that helped a lot of 222s in California. They would be not having the scholarship offers they did without it. I mean, I could go down and name the players: Keon Kenzie from Taft, Dusty Stromer from Notre Dame, 223. I mean, bunch of 222s, even at smaller colleges. So it did help. And I do want to kind of let people know real quick. I know we're jumping ahead, but what those dates are. So this year, Section 7 is June 17th through 19th. And again, like we said, Corona Centennial last year was still in the high school season when June, the Section 7 came on. So the high school season will be long over this year. The state championships are March 11th and March 12th. So they'll be, they're going to have ample time to go into the spring live period, ample time it'll be a normal Section 7, a normal June scholastic period, not cramped up. So it's June 17th through 19th. It's going to be in Glendale, Arizona. Last year it was at State Farm Stadium, where the Cardinals play, where the Arizona Cardinals play. And if you're listening to this pod and you have a team that wants to play in this event, email section7teamcamp@gmail.com. Once again, that's section 7, the number, section7teamcamp@gmail.com. We'll jump back into some details about that. I wanted to talk a little bit about D1. Like, I don't think Bosco's going to go that far. I did nothing to my guy, Matt Dunn. That would be a hell of a run. They're not a seeded team or whatnot, but they would have to beat Etiwanda in the quarterfinal. And then from that other semifinal, Heritage Christian has a good team. Rolling Hills Prep with Benny Geeler, who's going to Stanford, very good team. Yeah, I would think Poly's probably the favorite. He mentioned the freshman. The freshman he's talking about who got hurt is Elsie Harrington. In my initial Cal High rankings for 225 in the state, calhighsports.com, I had Elsie number 1, but he hurt his foot, so he's out for the playoffs. That's why I'm not sure Bosco. Maybe other guys have been playing good. They have other players. Cade Bonham, who you're going to see,
Yeah.
especially Ani at all the big events. Him and Elsie are two great 225s. The guy for Riverside Poly that he's referring to is Braden Burries. He's about 6'4", 6'5", two-man, wing forward, 2/3. He's playing really good. And that's kind of like he was mentioning. They have a kind of a young team. And like I said, they couldn't really handle Corona Centennial. They got really blown out, like 61-37. That may be looked at as one of the reasons why they weren't in the Open. But, you know, on their side, they have a tough game in the second round, probably against Roosevelt. And then, you know, St. Bernard will probably play West Ranch. That'll have some real fireworks. And then Poly will probably play that winner in the quarterfinal on February 18th. Then on February 22nd is the semifinal. So, you know, coming from that lower quadrant, you know, it could be Colony, maybe Colony of Ontario. They have some good players, including Minnesota-bound Jaden Henley. He's a sleeper going to Minnesota. Not a lot of the country knows about him, but if that could be a good semifinal. So it could be like Etowanda versus Colony, and then, you know, the other could be like no. Let me repeat myself. It could be Poly versus Colony in the semifinal, and then the other one could be like a Etowanda versus Heritage Christian, or Rolling Hills Prep, or maybe it's, you know, maybe St. John Bosco sneaks through there, like Eric said. So that's a good bracket. I don't know if you took a look at it, but those are some good teams. They're like,
no, those are really good teams. I did some homework on it, and I was just like, man, that's obviously the Open division is stronger, but like I think that that bracket right there is tough. There's a lot of quality teams. There's a lot of good coaching. Kind of like what Eric was talking about. There's a lot of good coaching. Just kind of me doing some of the background on it. I was just like, man, you're going to get some quality games, and guys are going to be prepared. So
no doubt.
it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot of really good second round semi. Like I think once you kind of get past the first round, you may see an upset or two, but I think that second round and beyond is going to be where you see some really good games.
Yeah, I want to shout out some of the coaches, like you mentioned. You know, Yancey Dotson from Poly. Steven Singleton, who coached Dominguez and Tyson Chandler to a state title. He's at Roosevelt. You know, Tony Bland, who we mentioned, has been on the college scene before. He's at St. Bernard. So, you know, he's another guy that totally puts his ego aside when he gets input and things like that. We talked about that. Brentwood, Moose Bailey, Toby Bailey's brother. He's a college player, played at UCLA, played at Penn State. Well versed. You know, Windward's coach is very good. Colony's coach is very good. You know, Jerry DeFabis, well known. Like I said, he has a really good team. They can really get to that semifinal against Poly. That would be a hell of a game. Dave Kleckner, Etowanda, Clamp City. They such good defensively all the time. You know, they had a couple lows. They lost that in league to Damien. That kind of knocked them out of the Open. But, you know, they've done a really good job. Deshaun Bryan, an up-and-coming coach at Fountain Valley, who's done a good job. But he mentioned Matt Dunn at St. John Bosco. He's won a state title at Damien. He's done a good job with Bosco. They're always battling Mater Dei in the Trinity League, and Mater Dei went undefeated in Trinity League this year. So we'll see if Bosco has that chance. I mean, Eric went out on the limb there. That's a hell of a, because they're missing one of their best players, Elsie Harrington. Right. And the other freshman who's a 1-2-3, as we talked about before. Hopefully we see them at the all Pangosol all West Fresh Soft is Giovanni Ruff at Long Beach Poly. Those are probably the three best freshmen right now. But again, there's a lot of time for those guys to develop. So it's going to be an exciting playoffs, you know, and like I said, it's a little bit more normal. So let's jump into the UIL playoff approaching. You know, again, 6A is the top division, kind of like the Open in California. 5A is very good. Duncanville's kind of rolling. They're still number 2 in the Fab 50. Obviously, we'll talk about that a little bit as we close out the show. Go ahead and give us a little bit of a highline things you see in the UIL playoffs coming up, Ani.
Yeah, so, excuse me. For 6A, you know, everybody's waiting for that Final Four potential matchup Richardson and Duncanville, and you know, AB Anthony Black to 222 still undecided. He's cleared, so he's going to play throughout. Last time they played, he came in the fourth quarter, like Stone Cold Steve Austin tried to say today. It just didn't work out. But it's going to be a very interesting game, seeing each other in the Final Four. But, you know, there's a lot of very interesting, like, potential matchups. I think in 6A, when you talk about potential second-round matchups, so, like, South Grand Prairie and McKinney, potentially see each other in the second round. South Grand Prairie, they lost their best player, Caden Bennett. He had a torn ACL, but they've been rolling this year. They've had really good wins. I think they're second or third in their district so far. McKinney, you know, they almost beat AZ Compass. They've been winning throughout this season.
Yeah, McKinney's had some big wins.
Yeah, McKinney's had some big wins. 2023, Jacoby Walters. They got a guard, Jacoby Campbell. That's his real crafty and a pest on the defensive end. They got an SMU commit, Alexander Meckway. That South Grand Prairie, they play fast. Coach Bennett really makes his boys get after it. McKinney's very well coached. They're disciplined, and you know, you got a high level player, and you got 2 Division I basketball players on that roster. So that's going to be a really interesting potential second round matchup. We talked about Richardson. You know, they have a matchup against Allen, and Allen's a young team. They got a lot of 23s, 24s. They have a really talented 25 that I think people will get to know during the spring and summer in Trent Payne. Comes off the bench for them, athletic, probably about 5'9", 5'10", but plays above the rim, crafty would handle, creates his own shot. So I think Richardson ends up beating Allen, but I think Allen, they've been competitive against very tough teams in the area. Lake Highlands and Plano, that's going to be a really interesting one. Plano's actually 31-0 right now. They're undefeated. And it's been like under the radar, like, people didn't realize they're undefeated until they're like 20-0. They're like, hold on, Plano's 20-0. And then they just got Justin McBride, who was a 2023 came back from Oak Hill, and he's added to the realm. So he's, you know, he makes them better. I got to see them play. Is very fun. That district with Louisville, Heber, and Capel. Yeah. Capel has the kid, Ryan Argerwall, that's going to Stanford. That's a tough district, but Plano's been really, really good. Lake Highlands, they have Trey Johnson. Yeah. Who's a 224, who's, I think, top 3 on ESPN. Borderline has a chance to be a number 1 player in his class. Played Richardson, almost knocked off Richardson, having 37 points and about 20-some points in the second half. Wow. So, So, Lake Highlands and Plano game.
Our guy Buff's been talking high about him on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I know. No, he's I remember when I first saw him last spring, and I was like, hold on. It was in Jim Hicks' event, the Icebreaker. I said, hold on, this kid may be the best in the area, best in Texas. And he was playing 16U last year, and he was the lead guy. So that Lake Highlands Plano game should be – I'll probably – if that game happens, which is probably going to happen, I'm there. That's a really good one. And then we go into 5A, Region 1. You know, obviously in 5A, you talk about like Kimball – favorites. You got Beaumont United. People expect them to see each other again in the championship game. But Kimball, you know, it's kind of been an up and down year. You know, I told the assistant coach at Kimball, I said, you know, y'all are capable of being anybody, but you know, sometimes I feel like y'all could lose to anybody.
What's going on with that? Let me jump to Kimball because I had them nationally ranked before. So they lost a close one to Duncanville. They lost to North Little Rock. They lost to Centennial from California, which is a good win for Centennial, you know, a hell of a win, one of their better wins. Then they lose to Corner Canyon in Lancaster, so they kind of fell off the national radar rankings out of the Fab 50. And I go, you know, I'm like, okay, I just going by the results. So kind of what do you see happening there? Or were they just playing well at the beginning and then tailed off, or did they have an injury, or did they just need to pick it up?
Yeah, and they also took a loss to Episcopal School of Dallas. I think we
out of the Fab 50 by then.
Yeah, right. So I think it just they haven't really had any injuries. No, one player had to lead the team, but that was giving them some good quality minutes. But just kind of been an up and down thing. I think the kids sometimes, you know, when you deal with teenagers, especially getting them ready to play every game and taking every game seriously. Obviously, Duncanville, who they haven't been able to beat. You know, they came to play for that one. North Little Rock. I think when they really come to play, it's very hard to beat Kimball. All right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just the inconsistencies of bringing it. You know, each game you just don't really know. But I know playoff time, like even last year, they start to turn the corner. They start to really lock in. That team's so talented with Arterio Morris is going to Texas. Chauncey Gibson's going to Clemson. They got a 2023 Tejon Brown. They got a 23 big fella in Decatur Wickware who's kind of molding himself into a Division I basketball player. Talking about 5 guys, and then they got some good depth coming off the bench. I mean, they're a quality team. They're just really inconsistent. They're just inconsistent. You just really don't know what you're getting every night. And you know what? And the coaches, they know that, and I think the players are starting to kind of understand that as well. And they're I think when playoff time comes, they'll lock in and, you know, make the run at it.
Okay, so is Beaumont United? Let's say the playoffs started today. Are they the favorite, and then they could meet Kimball again?
Yeah, I would say they're the favorite, even though it's been a little bit up and down for them too. I know they lost to North Little Rock. They took a tough one against Cy Ranch in the beginning of the season. So, but I think they're kind of getting it together. Again, it was just championship high is what I believe. You know, kind of come in. They're very talented. They brought damn near everybody back. And then it's just like, you know, I think they've just from what my just watching was coming in expecting to, like, thinking that the win's going to come instead of like, you know, you're going to get everybody's best fight and everybody's best punch. So I think, you know, I think Beaumont United to me are my favorites to win it. I think Kimball is the most talented team in 5A. But if they come in locking, I think they should. I mean, them and Beaumont United will see each other, and that's going to be a dogfight. But in 5A, you got like Frisco Memorial, who's had a really good season. Sock, who's took Kimball to, you know, really close games. Lucas Lovejoy, who's very, very disciplined. Coach does a hell of a job just getting his kids prepared. They're going to be such a tough team because you're not going to speed them up. They're going to go through their sets. If they got to run through a minute to get a shot off, they're going to get the shot off. And they got a kid, a 2023 Carson Templin, 6'11", borderline like 6'11" wingspan, rim protector, rebounder, has a good feel as a passer. I mean, they initiate offense around him, and they're a tough team to beat. So they're going to have some battles in 5A for sure. So.
Yeah, and I look at those results, and I wanted to give people a little quick rundown. And like you mentioned, you know, Beaumont lost to Cy Ranch, North Little Rock, then they lost to Newton, Georgia. So Newton's like number 2 in their division in Georgia, and you know they're obviously Pebblebrook is the best team, but Pebblebrook lost to Durango of Nevada in the first round of TARC. So those teams have been knocked down a little bit in terms of their national ranking. Obviously, Bishop Gorman is the favorite in Nevada and in the top division, and Coronado just pulled off a big win against Simeon in Chicago at the Donda event.
I saw that.
Coronado and Durango are playing this week. As you hear this pod, they'll be playing on Friday. As we mentioned, you know, games getting ready for the playoffs in California on Friday, and Nevada's getting ready to start their playoffs next week. So yeah, you know, it's very interesting. We'll see if that 5A champ gets back in the Fab 50. Obviously, Duncanville and Richardson. My take is that, oh man, that's gonna be, if those two meet again, then obviously that's gonna be a hell of a game. Obviously, Duncanville lost in overtime in the Whataburger, and Richardson's only lost to North Little Rock. So before we jump into the national perspective, you know, we'll get your take as the playoffs start. I don't want to put you on the spot yet to ask you who might win that game. We'll come back to that. Okay. Obviously, it's going to build up, and I'll do a little homework myself, and we'll put a prediction on that Richardson Duncanville game before the game. You know, maybe a round or two in the playoffs on the next in the Paint Pod. You know, we're here on 116. But I wanted to let people know as we get ready to close out, we're going to talk about the Fab 50, but want to let people know that we're looking to spread, you know, more apparel promotion. And so obviously I want people to know about our shop.ballislife.com podcast discount code. It's in the Paint discount code. You get 15% off your next order when you shop with us at shop.ballislife.com. The code is PAINT15. Once again, the code you can enter is PAINT15. The numbers 15. So you get free shipping all throughout the U.S. 15% off when you use that code. Backpacks, basketballs, tees, and shorts. We also wanted to mention that we're having our Ballislife East Coast Squad versus Zone 6 on Saturday the 12th. The best of 5 series. The winner takes 10 grand. I know, Ani, me and you, we could use 10 grand.
Right.
You guys are great for 10 grand. It's if you're in the Tampa Bay area, it's going to be at Wesley Chappelle District Park. Obviously, most people can't get to Tampa Bay on that short notice, but if you can't, it's going to be a free live stream on caffeine.tv at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's CAFFEINE.TV, caffeine.tv. It's like a live stream, so those are pretty cool. I've been a few, and obviously our street ball teams, they do a great job. They love to grow their brand, love to promote themselves, and people like watching it. I mean, Ani, some people just like watching hoop. Like, forget all this talk. They just like watching hoop.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, same here. I like in my downtime, I'll sometimes just watch, and I'm like, this is just entertaining.
It's just entertaining. It's just hoop. Yeah, it's good hoop. And some of them are good hoopers. Others are better than others. Like the guy I think about is my guy from the West Coast, got Frank Nitty. Like he's he basically, we've talked about guy. He could basically play spot minutes in the NBA. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind about it. He just rolls by guys like he's just really talented. And he didn't really have he came and talked about his past on a previous episode. How he came to be, went through junior college, played at Weber State with Damian Lillard. That didn't work out. He came back home to cast at LA at D2. So, and he's made a name for himself. So 3-time Drew League MVP. So there's a lot of good matchups out there. Hopefully this recent game is very good, and it's again 3 out of 5 for 10 grand. Hopefully you guys can tune into that. So as we wrap up, let's talk about this big showdown. We talked about the top teams, and we talked about Duncanville being number 2. Let me give you the rundown here. Sunrise number 1. They won the NIBC. They beat IMG for the second time. Duncanville's number 2. Montverde Academy has the 2 losses to IMG, but is split with Sunrise, number 3. Link Academy's undefeated up to number 4. Centennial, who we've talked about a lot, 5. IMG comes in at 6. Richardson at 7. La Lumiere with some big wins.
Yeah.
La Lumiere beat IMG last week, even though our guy Keontae George had a 40-point game. I mean, it was a really good game. Yeah, but La Lumiere played well. They were playing without Jaden Bradley, IMG was. So La Lumiere still behind IMG because they have the 2 wins over Montverde. But La Lumiere does deserve credit for that win. So they move up to 8. And our guys from Calvary Christian Academy is number 10 behind Oak Hill, who's playing with a little bit of incentive because it's going to be the last year for Steve Smith. So let's talk about this big match coming up at the Heartland Hoops Classic this weekend. It will be this Friday. There's going to be a lot of good matchups this weekend. We talked about this Friday being a big week for playoffs or for big matchups. We have Sunrise Christian won the first official NIBC championship. Obviously, last year Montverde won the one-off game against Sunrise, 1 versus 4. Ani, what do you see as the key to this matchup? I know you watched a little bit of both teams. Sunrise versus Link. What do you see as the key in this matchup here at the Heartland Hoop Classic? This is a huge game for Link Academy. Not as much country knows about them as much as these other teams we talked about, but Rodney Berry's program's having a hell of a year. They're 26-0.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. No, Link has been fantastic this year, especially the first year taken to the high school space. They've always had a post-grad team. I mean, Ronnie Perry's done a hell of a job, and the staff. I think the big thing about this game is, like, which side is going to take over the most? Like, is Sunrise backcourt going to just demolish Link's backcourt, or is Link, who has the size advantage in the front court with Jordan Walsh, Terrace Reed, Parra, you got Omaha Balu, are they going to command on the glass? Are they going to really kind of take over? But Sunrise defense is just so menacing. It's tough. Link here just getting baskets, consistently on their defense, and getting second, third chance opportunities is going to be big. But Sunrise just, their backcourt is so strong. Lincoln's backcourt is not bad. It's just they don't have the depth. Like, I mean, Sunrise with Grady Dick, Scotty Middleton, Layden Blocker,
Trey Green.
Trey Green, yeah, and Trey Green
on the other side against Layden Blocker. That's a hell of a matchup. Yeah,
right. No, that's a big time matchup. And then I just think like which one take over. I think Link has the size advantage in the front, and I think Sunrise has the backcourt advantage. And which one is going to really, which part is going to really just take over? I mean, can't discredit Mark Mitchell. He's been having a fantastic season at Sunrise, right. But Link just has more depth in the front court.
Correct. Link's gonna have to, like you said, I think one of my keys, Link's gonna have to slow Mark Mitchell down a bit. He's been playing really good as of late. Obviously, he's a McDonald's All-American. He's been playing good the whole year, but lately he's been really hitting some shots, knocking some things down. Like you said, if Reed, Phillips, and Walsh control those boards, I mean, Sunrise is really gonna have to shoot it well, and they can with Dick and those guys, but they're gonna like Scotty. I think Scotty Middleton's gonna have to hit a couple shots to keep him honest. And Layden Blocker's been playing really good. He had the kind of that clinching shot in that game against IMG down the stretch.
Yeah,
and man, Mark Mitchell hit a big three on the wing, and then Layden kind of closed the game out. Who do you think wins the matchup? I mentioned Trey Green because he's a little bit under the radar, like you said. He's gonna have to play good because, as you mentioned, of a backcourt depth that Sunrise had. What do you think? What do you like, and what do you see in that 223 matchup between Layden and Trey Green?
Trey's is someone that could really fill it up. I mean, when he gets hot, and can score from damn near anywhere. But he's a willing passer too. So he's not just someone that just very you can't really predict what he'll do. He will facilitate, and he can get a shot off with step backs and hang dribbles and stuff like that. Layden just like a dog downhill guy that, athletic, plays hard as hell, very good passer, especially on drives. Man, that matchup is going to be tough. I think I'll give the slight edge to Layden.
Sure.
But, I get a slight edge to Layden because I just think he just really he got kind of pieced around him where he can really do what he has to do. But Trey, at any moment, if you told me by Friday night, if he had 25 points and 5 assists, it just wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah.
But I give the edge to Layden. I just like how he's really been playing lately. I think he's been fantastic.
Okay, yeah. So, but that note, you obviously think Sunrise backcourt has a little bit of an advantage, and then Link's front court has a little bit of advantage. So what comes out on top? I'll put you on the spot, and then I'll give my opinion as we wrap up. What do you think's happening in this game?
I'm gonna go the upset.
Okay, Link.
I go the upset. I'm gonna go Link.
So too much firepower up front, or just they rebound well enough and shoot it just well enough. I imagine that's what they have to do. Take good percentage shots.
Yeah.
Don't get carried away with the trying through alley-oops and things like that, because they're athletic. They can get out there. Like you said, if they take good shots, they have a chance. I think because of the pressure, both teams are going to be in Geico at the end of the season,
right?
Which is in March 31st through April 2nd in Fort Myers. Sunrise has been there before. They've lost, they've won, they've lost these matchups. So I think they're not as much pressure. So I think they'll pull it out at the end. I think they've just been playing tough games, and they've learned how to win those tough games. I think Link is going to be a tough game, and then they're going to Sunrise will win by a basket or two. But Link knows if they play pretty well, they're going to get into Geico most likely, and they'll have their chance. So that'll be a great experience. Win or lose is going to be a great experience for them to show, okay, now we know what we got to do for 3 straight games at Geico, not just in a 1-game setting. So yeah, I think, like you mentioned, Layden and the guards are Grady will hit a couple big shots. Scotty will play just good enough for them to ink out a close win, but it's going to be close. So we'll see what happens. Next week, we'll talk about that when we wrap up, our next In the Paint. As we wrap up episode 116, we'll come back on 117 and talk about that game a little bit. That's this Friday. Again, this is going by fast this week. We're doing this later in the week because we shot earlier. We talked about a WNBA with our co-host Chelsea Hopkins. that went well. She'll be on once in a while. Obviously, Ani's here to break down the high school scene and the grassroots and the college scene. And she'll jump on once in a while to talk about the NBA and the WNBA. So, we're glad that everybody can jump on, everybody that's tuning in. But I think for now, we're going to get out of here. We kind of went over what we wanted to do. We want to kind of get in and out. So a lot of good basketball coming up. Playoffs are coming up. Again, we appreciate everybody listening to the In the Paint show presented by Ballislife. Again, make sure to go check out our other podcasts, Buckets and Breakdowns, Noble and Roosh. Let us know how you feel. We're trying to grow that YouTube version of it on the Ballislife network. So if you can listen to it, just listen to it on YouTube if you want. Obviously, we love that you listen to it on Megaphone or Spotify, and that people are downloading it. So, Ani, we appreciate that. We appreciate you coming on, and we appreciate people listening.
Oh, the 100%. No, I appreciate the support, and yeah, definitely follow. Watch our YouTube videos. I think we're great on the cam too. So
yeah, people might want to look at you. I don't think they want to look at me too.
No, they want to look at both of us. They want
to want to see some of our guests or Chelsea. Great. I'm not sure about me though, but all that's great. Yeah, appreciate you guys again tuning in or listening. But for now, Ronnie and Ani are logging off.